Welcome everybody to this very first Exail webinar. We're here in Exail headquarters in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, just west of Paris. My name's David Cunningham. I'm looking after partnerships and business for Exail. Many of you will be aware of Exail. It's the new name for Xblue, and represents the partnership that we now have with Eka Group, recently announced. So many of you will have seen earlier X-Live events with Xblue. This is our first event with the Exail branding. So welcome. So we're here today. We're going to talk about, it's quite a convoluted sort of presentation, but it's about revolutionizing our relationship with the ocean through leadership and marine autonomy. And I'm really happy to be joined by Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet from America to talk about this topic from a few different directions. So welcome, Tim.
It's great to be here, David.
Thank you very much for coming and getting involved in this. It's a you know, I know that you're very used to presenting and discussing in many arenas over many years, and this is maybe it's a little bit unusual for you to be here in France talking about this, but thank you very much for being here.
Glad to be
here. Give us a bit of a background on your 32-year history or career with the Navy and latterly with NOAA and so on. Tell us a little bit about where you've come from.
Sure. Well, currently I am a strategic advisor for Exail, and I originally joined Xblue in March of 2021, so I've been with the team for about a year and a half. And I first came to know Xblue from my time at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, in the U.S. And NOAA is America's top climate, environmental, ocean, and atmospheric administration and agency. And when I came across Xblue, it was through the testing of their DRIX USV, uncrewed surface vessel, or autonomous system, on a NOAA ship. NOAA has 16 ships, and NOAA was testing out the DRIX USV to use it for ocean mapping. And when I went on board the ship, it was underway, and the DRIX performed flawlessly and created incredibly high-quality maps, seafloor maps. And I was sold on the technology instantly. I mean, the superior quality of the mapping data was like nothing I've ever seen. And I've been a hydrographer, again, for 32 years in the Navy, and then overseeing it at NOAA. So as soon as I left government in 2021, I couldn't wait to join the Exail team. And that's what brings me here.
Well, that's great. That's excellent. It's good to get a bit of an understanding of some of your backstory, and I know that during your tenure at NOAA, that you took a leadership in bringing together autonomous activities and technologies into some coordinated, sort of quite important coordinated strategy for the institution, for the administration, and that's one of the threads that perhaps we'll explore a little bit through this discussion. And so, I mean, autonomy has clearly been a big part of your story over the years. Maybe you can just give us a few little anecdotes of where it all started, and and how the touch points with the technology over the years.
Right. I am passionate about marine autonomy, and I have about 2 decades experience with it. It started out when I was at the Naval Oceanographic Office, and we launched the very first uncrewed underwater vehicle from a Navy oceanographic ship in 2004 in the Western Pacific. And I was on board the ship then, and that's when I came to know this technology. And when I was with the Navy and the oceanographer of the Navy, for example, we had the Navy's largest drone fleet, over 120 of these underwater vehicles. And even before that, I helped the Navy SEALs stand up their first ocean and aerial drone program, which they were using in combat operations. And then that leadership that I was able to accomplish in the Navy, that's what inspired me then when I moved over to NOAA in a civilian capacity to lead NOAA's efforts in uncrewed systems because there was so much great activity, but no one was in charge. It was basically a bunch of pickup games. And so I created a centralized office, a new program. The White House and Congress gave us more money for that. And we institutionalized this marine autonomy in the agency. And so now I'm just thrilled to be with Exail and help this team lead autonomy throughout the industry.
So here's a question. So when you very first saw this little yellow robot being deployed into the ocean to go and, it was a glider, I imagine, or something like that, did you ever imagine that the industry would be where it is today in terms of complexity and capability and the variety of different robots that there are deployed globally?
It is remarkable. No. In fact, there were just a few companies leading in this effort at the time when I was in the oceanography community of the Navy in 2004. And I've been delighted, actually, to see the industry grow like it has. And now you have these blue or maritime clusters all around the world. In the U.S., for example, we have them in Boston, in Florida, in San Diego, in San Francisco, and so it's really terrific to see that the technology has advanced and that the industry is now leading. In fact, that was a big story from my time in government, is that the private sector was moving so fast that we knew we had to partner through public-private partnerships to apply the technology and use it to greater benefit.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think at XBlue, we had been involved for many years in the robotics revolution. Obviously, ECA, within the Exail partnership, has obviously been involved in the underwater vehicle business for many years. So collectively, we've got some experience within the group. But maybe you can just, so where does this marine autonomy activity kind of revolutionize our approach to the ocean
right.
exploration, ocean understanding?
Yeah. So when I look at this revolution in our relationship with the ocean, I see three main areas that autonomy is enabling and helping us. And the first is ocean discovery, or really learning about the ocean. We haven't explored even 10% of the ocean's volume. Yeah. And this is so exciting to me. And we advanced this field in really significant ways at NOAA, where we were learning new things about the ocean every day. We were mapping the seafloor. I mean, think, for example, that we haven't even mapped 50% of the U.S. exclusive economic zone. So that's that much of the seabed we don't know about, and even less about the ocean volume. So some of the discoveries we were making at NOAA during my time there between 2017 and 2021 included finding new seamounts. We were finding all sorts of new species on the seabed and in the water column. 25 new species in 1 year we discovered. And these weren't little microorganisms. Some of them were actually megafauna, like you see this type D killer whale. We discovered a new species of killer whale off Antarctica in 2020. It's just remarkable and exciting at the same time.
Yeah, so so it's observing the ocean, understanding the geology and the biology and the ocean processes. So that was your first example. You said there were three. What are the other two? Well,
let me just continue one more on this. Other things that we found, shipwrecks that we never knew about. In addition to seamounts, we found an 80-mile-long coral reef just off the U.S. East Coast that we never knew about. Imagine that, just in our backyard, something we didn't know about. And so there's that. But in addition to ocean discovery, the second of three, I think, really important areas of revolutionizing our relationship with the ocean is conservation. And it's interesting. I think when I was a young person in the 80s, no one really thought about recycling, and we were really bad polluters, especially in the ocean. But we've turned the corner, I think, as a society, in terms of all the science and discovery that we're conducting. We've realized our impact on the ocean hasn't been positive. We have really significant marine plastic pollution around the globe. Coral reefs have been bleaching, and and the acidification that's occurring from carbon emissions is contributing to that, in addition to the warming of ocean waters. And that's important. Coral reefs are the nurseries for fisheries. They're the highest regions of biodiversity in the ocean. So it's significant when reefs are dying like that. And then you have our impact on like marine mammals, for example. There's a species of whale, the North Atlantic right whale, and that's a picture of one there, that is critically endangered. I mean, on the verge of becoming extinct. And you know, we don't want to be the species that is responsible for that. So more and more people are wanting to protect the ocean and the life in it and conserve these valuable resources. And I think it's just brilliant. You know, in the last decade, for example, we have, across the globe, funding for ocean conservation has increased or doubled to around $2 billion. So it's good. Conservation is that second part of this new relationship we have with the ocean.
Yeah, and so it's understanding the ocean. It's conserving the ocean, or taking measures to understand how we can conserve it. And the third reason is essentially the sort of the end game somehow.
Yeah, exactly. It's using the ocean sustainably. I mean, we depend upon it in many ways, for energy, for transportation, shipping that enables the global supply chain, which all world economies depend upon. It's things like new pharmaceutical uses from species we're discovering. Like, for example, at NOAA, we discovered a new marine sponge that off of Alaska that is helping cure pancreatic cancer with the molecular compounds derived from that. And fishing and aquaculture, for example, our world population is 7.8 billion right now. And by 2050, it's projected to increase to 10 billion. That's like adding another United States and China to the world. And how are we going to feed that growing planet? Well, fish farming is a really important application. And then of course, energy and even ecotourism for recreation. That's an important part of society. And so all of these are ways we use the ocean. And but the important thing is we're now learning that we want to do it sustainably, so we don't harm it and extract entirely, but do it in a way that conserves the resources for the next generation.
Sure. Yeah, so sustainable use of the oceans is kind of the end game, the goal. You ain't going to do that without doing the other two first. So
that's right.
Understanding it, understanding the delicate, balances within it that allow you to exploit for man's benefit the various resources from the ocean. So now let's get back on on the topic of the chat here.
Yeah.
How's marine autonomy going to help us with this?
Well, exactly. So all these areas depend upon data and information.
Yeah.
Using the adage, you can't manage what you have not measured. And this is where autonomy is really just coming into play. That so little of the ocean is known, right? And we can't cover it all with ships. They're too expensive, and we'll never have enough of them. But robots, this is what's coming into play. We can map and discover and explore and measure the ocean like never before now with autonomous systems.
So let's have a look at a few examples of where this this technology can play.
Yeah, and this is a great one here. This is the DRIX USV, and it's being launched off the ocean exploration vessel Nautilus. The Ocean Exploration Trust is the foundation that operates this for NOAA. They're part of NOAA's Ocean Exploration Cooperative Institute. And in fact, that ship is owned by Robert Ballard, the famous discoverer of the Titanic. And I think it's quite a testament that Robert Ballard has basically endorsed DRIX as the chosen, of choice mapping asset for him. And when you have someone like him, a world authority on ocean everything, really, it's quite a statement on the superior quality of the technology. And so this is an example of when DRIX was being used to map the region off of Hawaii. There's a large part of the U.S. exclusive economic zone off Hawaii that we just know nothing about. And it's important for all the reasons I mentioned, the blue economy applications, sustainable use that we have in the Pacific, whether it be for fishing or transportation. And this is where DRIX is really helping out in a significant way. And yes.
Okay, so this is a hydrographic exercise on one level,
yeah.
A mapping exercise, the EZ element, which is understanding the environment, but I think it's also a conservation element to it as well.
Absolutely.
In this particular case,
because
of where it was.
Because this mission, in addition to mapping off Hawaii, the portion of Hawaii that it was mapping in is called the Papahānaumokuākea Marine National Monument.
I won't try and say that.
Good. It took me a few years to learn that. And basically, it's a marine protected area. An area set aside to protect the sea life in the region, like the coral reefs, the marine mammals, humpback whales migrate here to give birth. And so, again, you can't manage what you haven't measured. That mapping is critical to preserve and conserve those important resources off the state of Hawaii.
Yeah.
And the DRIX just did an amazing job here. There's a picture of the DRIX and the Nautilus, and then you can see some of the resources, the pelagic fish, the coral reefs. And
your holiday snaps here, Tim, as well.
That is me, by the way, and I'm pretty proud of that photo. It's off Oahu.
Okay. On that mission, or
it was before that mission, but yeah,
in the same area. Same area, yeah. Okay. So that's so ocean conservation and the mapping, the EZ element. What other examples have we got in this area?
Well, those are the two of the three-part theme we have here in our relationship with the ocean. The third part is that, again, blue economy, sustainable use. And I think the great example here is what NOAA is doing to manage fisheries. And now fisheries are important. Here you see a picture of the Alaskan pollock. It's the largest fishery in the U.S. by volume. Mm-hmm. And NOAA conducts surveys to determine the abundance of the fish. The reason being is knowing the abundance allows fishery management councils to set catch limits to ensure that the stocks aren't overfished each year. And that management is involving conservation of the resource, but also sustainable use. And so one of the examples I highlight here is that we, during COVID in 2020, weren't able to get our ships underway because we didn't have any protocols for COVID and people on ships. So what we did is we sent 4 drones up to the Bering Sea to measure the Alaskan pollock. And with that data, we were able to set catch limits such that if we hadn't had the data, we would have been more conservative in the catch limits. But knowing that there was a healthy population, we set the catch limits so that the fishermen made $100 million more than they would have otherwise in one season for one stock. Yeah. So this is
so there we see the economic interest, let's say, of ocean science and the what's kind of the blue economy thread, isn't it?
Absolutely, exactly right. So this is where marine autonomy has come into play for that. And what I'm excited about is DRIX is now, again, NOAA has selected DRIX to not only be the premier ocean mapping effort. You saw NOAA's Cooperative Institute, Bob Ballard ship mapping off Hawaii, but now NOAA Fisheries intends to conduct fisheries surveys with DRIX and using the CPICs and the forward-looking sonar that we have demonstrated off of on DRIX. And it's you see the Northeast Fisheries Science Center did that first demonstration. So they're exploring that right now and determining how they can apply DRIX to in all the fisheries science centers in all the different regions of the U.S.
Yeah. Okay. So enormous potential economic impacts globally.
Yes.
Particularly in the fish managing fish stocks.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you talk about just globally, I know I focus on the U.S., but globally, fisheries produce about a $240 billion economic contribution to economies around the globe. So yeah, we're definitely, matters to many nations.
Okay, so that's a nice set of examples, real examples of where autonomy, marine autonomy has been deployed, and obviously DRIX has been in a number of those pictures. It's our marine autonomy, and there's plenty of other activity around. It's not just us in this area at all. But where does the leadership come into all of this? Do you think? How do you feel who's leading in these different areas?
Well, great. This is really the heart of the conversation here. And as a former naval officer, leadership is in my DNA. It's what I've been trained to do. And being passionate and seeing the value of marine autonomy, I led efforts like that in the Navy, as I discussed. I did the same at NOAA. And now I'm just thrilled to be with Exail as a team and industry that is leading in so many brilliant ways with regards to marine autonomy. And so, there's several examples we can talk about. I think maybe the first one might be just the technology. And this is what sold me when I saw the DRIX being demonstrated off the NOAA ship Thomas Jefferson in 2019, is it is engineered to be a premier ocean mapping asset. And look at it, it's not like every other vehicle you've seen, autonomous vehicle, surface vehicle, that looks basically like a boat. The engineers purposely designed this to be stable, so there's nothing like a boat on it. The wave-piercing bow, the very lean beam, and that produces a stability unlike any other asset in the industry. And so, for example, the International Hydrographic Organization sets standards for data quality and hydrography, and the very top standard, Order 1, this asset can collect that standard in sea state 4, which is absolutely unheard of. And so that's again why I was keen on joining the team.
And then I guess also it can do that around the clock.
Well, right. It's autonomous, so it doesn't. This is what drones do: the dull, dirty, and dangerous work that people shouldn't be doing. And exactly. So it can. And with what's great about this, so we have stability. You also have endurance. An endurance of over 10 days at 7 knots, and it can surge to 14 knots, so it makes it very agile and maneuverable, and that's really key in terms of safe navigation. There's various other drones that are drift maybe with the wind or don't have that speed, but when you look at speed, stability, and endurance all combined, this really is a superior asset.
Yeah. Okay. So the technology leadership is one element, and with DRIX, we're certainly seeing the innovative design, in terms of hull form and so on, gives it a unique capability. What other elements in marine autonomy have you observed?
Well, what I like, again, DRIX is a great example of this, is the embracing open architecture standards and really an ability through its modularity to accommodate sensors and systems from any collaborator in the sector. So not just owning every piece, but bringing on other players' types of assets. So for example, you know about this field really well.
I know. I mean, it's sort of it's right at the heart of Exblue's, and now Exail's kind of philosophy is to maintain openness. And we touched on it earlier, DRIX is not the only USV, not the only autonomous thing in the ocean, and we've worked with many different AUV developers over the last few years. And so that idea of having an open approach to work with others, whether it's sensors or other vehicles or other systems, communication and so on, is right at the heart of what we do. And I think in terms of leadership, that approach seems to me to be really important. If we're all going to advance as fast as we need to work collaboratively as well.
And it's like a rising tide lifts all boats. And I like that. What's really great about this, David, too, is that's actually kind of what led to the ECA Exblue joining to Exail, because you see that this is like the third area that I think leadership is being shown in such a tremendous way with the DRIX, and that is this area of multi-vehicle integration and interoperability. And here you see ECA's A18 AUV operating with the DRIX in a multi-vehicle integrated way. And this is the future of marine autonomy, right? Multiple vehicles collaborating together dynamically. It's thrilling to me because my experience heretofore has always been one vehicle augmenting a manned vessel, and now we have multiple vehicles out there doing the work. And so it's pretty well advanced in aerial autonomy. Swarms of drones working together, that's well out there. But the communications are a lot more challenging underwater, and now we're finally overcoming that. And it's just a great time to be in this field of marine autonomy.
Yeah, sure. No. I think it's very exciting, and I think the we've obviously we've got this new partnership with ECHA, but as I say, we've worked with a number of other AUV providers, whether it's Saab or Teledyne in the past years, and we do more and more of that. And I think certainly the customers we interact with are looking at this application area, this kind of cutting edge approach more and more. It's really interesting. Well, that's been really interesting. I think we are sort of moving towards a close, and so what I think we will have some time for some questions.
Okay.
Shortly, but maybe have you got any sort of final thoughts on this kind of leadership and this maritime autonomy domain?
Well, I do. And I think it's appropriate, Exail being a French company, to go back to someone who is well known, Jacques Cousteau, in the field of marine science. And think about what Jacques Cousteau did. He inspired a generations, of ocean leaders. And he was an ocean leader himself. And the impact he had is remarkable. I would say that everyone in the field I know was somehow influenced by his Underwater World of Jacques Cousteau series. And that's not an exaggeration anyway. And in fact, it's many people out of even the field that just now want to protect the ocean, and even in places far removed from it, like the interior of the US, for example. And so Jacques Cousteau, being this leader in everything ocean, he really built the foundation that now is revolutionizing our relationship with the ocean, which today is more technology-based, right? And so when we think about that, we can all go back to what he started, and it's an exciting time in this field because marine autonomy, we have basically robots advancing these elements of our relationship with the ocean, being understanding it more and better, conserving and protecting it for future generations, and then sustainably using it for such important areas like energy and transportation and sustainable fishing. Yeah, it's a great time to be in marine autonomy.
Yeah, no, so that's a good way to end. I think the leadership of the organisations that you've led in the past is kind of critical, isn't it? And your leadership within them is also a really interesting story in itself. And you bring that all together with the technology, the innovation that's occurred in this space in the last 30 years, and continues apace now.
Indeed.
in terms of platforms, sensors, even business models.
Right.
It's a really vibrant, really active area, and it's tremendously exciting, as you say, and for all of the good reasons that you've highlighted around ocean science, understanding the environment, conserving the environment, and ultimately sustainably exploiting it. It's really interesting. Thank you really so much for being here, Tim. It's been a real privilege to spend time with you and to discuss these topics. And we've done a lot of discussion aside from this short interview here. And I know that you're happy to stick around and take a few questions. If we've got anybody in the world who would like to ask us a question, please fire away.
Absolutely.
And we've got we've got a couple of questions. So we've got a question here about, which is a sort of a bit of a technical one. Can you recover an AUV at sea state 4. So, I mean, I think an AUV at sea state 4, I think with the right operational approach, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do that. Not sure it particularly doesn't really relate to the DRIX or a USV.
Well, it's a good question, because actually in this field of autonomy, we're pushing the envelope, and that's on the envelope right there.
Yeah, sure.
We're covering anything in sea state 4. But ultimately, I think what's great in our story here is that that's why you build a system like the DRIX that has these combined assets of speed, endurance, and stability. I wouldn't advise recovering any vehicle in sea state 4, hazardous to personnel, but if you have a vessel that has an endurance of 11 days, you don't need to, because you can pretty much be assured, in most operating areas, that there'll be a time within 10 days where the sea state will go a little bit lower and permit safe recovery. And so that's a great question to lead into why you want the combined assets of any given vehicle.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so yeah, evolving a technology that can work in extreme environments is one thing. Evolving a set of operational procedures to manage these types of risks is also key, and actually understanding the challenge and working with the people and the teams, on site to deal with those challenges is really key.
You also touch a great topic, and this is an example of what Exail has done with NOAA, my former agency, is rather than just sort of throwing the product over the fence, as they say, what has happened is Exail and NOAA have worked together for years to develop those operational processes and protocols and evaluate them and determine what works best. And so it's been a 3-year process that led to finally acquisition this year of the USV, because, and I think that's the sign of a very, not only a great public-private partnership, but an example of, again, as a business process to take care of the customer. And that's an evolution. That many companies or sectors don't even go there, right? Yeah. And it's not necessarily their business model, but in this application, for cutting-edge technology, it has to be.
Yeah, no, sure. And I remember delving into the NOAA's strategy document around autonomy, and one of the key themes in there was about training.
That's right.
And it's that the importance of training. Okay, they're robots, they're uncrewed things, but actually there's people in the loop, and there's new processes, new training, new knowledge, new skills required to capitalize on these devices.
I think the industry knows this well. There's no such thing as an uncrewed system, but it definitely takes more people out of the loop. Yeah.
So we've got a couple more questions here. So we've got hello, thank you for this opportunity. Did you operate DRIX in nighttime and 24 hours continuously, several missions in the USA?
I didn't. I wish I did, but my teams did, yes.
Yeah, so it's certainly been done on a number of occasions, and I think perhaps most recently this summer, we worked as Exail, or Xblue at the time, in fact, on a project in Saint-Pierre-Miquelon.
Right.
And that was a 24-hour operation, DRIX operating, through the night. Controlled locally for part of the day, and then controlled from France in a remote operations center, from a remote operations center over here for the other part of the day. So yes, very much so. It's been operated continuously over many days on a 24-hour basis. Yeah,
I think that question is terrific, because it highlights that the benefit of autonomous technology is, people minimizing the footprint of the crew, if you will, and the ability to control remotely from anywhere. When I was in the Navy, we controlled those underwater gliders from our command center at the Naval Oceanographic Office in Stennis Space Center, Mississippi, and they were worldwide in every ocean. And now you see this is what Exail is doing with the DRIX too. It's a great example.
Yeah, no. So it's happening. It's real. So another question here. How many DRIX vessels are there now? Are there plans to build more? There's definitely plans to build more. We have, I think, around about 22 systems, something like that, on the water now. And yes, there are definitely plans to build more. Any more questions? So here we go. Many of the commercial USVs for civil applications are designed for coastal environment and have endurance in the range of multiple days. Do you see a need for USV platforms with extended navigation capabilities and endurance in the range of multiple weeks? And for which kind of applications? Tim, have you got a quick answer for that?
I do, actually. So this is happening with UUVs right now, the underwater vehicles I talked about. Gliders have endurance of months. So there's a need. The data is, there's always a need for the data. And so really, I think that's the future of USV technology, is pushing the endurance envelope. And of course, we're seeing incredible advances with battery power, and so that will allow us to extend that limit. There's no reason we wouldn't want to have a system out for longer than a couple weeks. And we need the data anyways, and that's how ships operate. And the point is to augment the ships. And I think that's what actually NOAA is pursuing. They've written a draft specification for their uncrewed surface vessel fleet to basically match the ship. It have a speed so that the ship doesn't have to sort of wait for the vehicles to catch up.
Yeah, so I guess if we look at civil applications of that sort of technology, there's obviously I guess in the sort of ocean mapping, hydrographic kind of pipeline or route survey type applications for transocean cables or so on. I guess there's a number of other ocean science applications, maybe with platforms working as kind of force multipliers with manned vessels. But then, I mean, for sure there are, let's say, defense applications, which would be another set of sensors and so on, but perhaps on a similar type of platform.
Well, yeah, I'll talk to that. Let me just address that before the next question. So that is the future: ships becoming motherships of drones, or the drones replacing the ships altogether. And that's what's happening in the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet. In fact, I've been on a nice European swing for Exail. I started out in the UK with you, David, at the Marine Autonomy and Technology Showcase at the National Oceanography Center in Southampton. And then I went on to Genoa, Italy to meet with the hydrographers of their Navy. And I then went to Spain to meet with their hydrographers. I'm here in the headquarters in France, and I'm off to Bahrain next, where the 5th Fleet intends to continue its uncrewed surface vessel demonstration activity with the goal of having a fleet of 100 vessels doing the things that ships formerly did in terms of intelligence, surveillance, and marine monitoring. So it's a pretty exciting time, not only for civil applications, but even defense.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, it really is. And okay, so here we go. This is a good question. And it's a sort of a carrying on question. And what would you ask future vehicles to do that the present versions can't?
I think what I see now is most of the sensor suites are limited in terms of only a few or just a single sensor. And so if you have a mission, for example, you do a mapping mission, and then maybe you then replace it with a magnetometer, et cetera. And I think more and more we want to see multiple sensors, a full package, if you will, on vehicles, and because then you're just going to get more bang for the buck.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, and perhaps this other question is similar sort of vein. Maybe one should have come before the other. I've read them in the wrong order, perhaps. But it says, how would you rank the technology maturity of unmanned maritime systems? What do you see as the main remaining challenges to gain wide acceptance by the maritime community?
I don't think that's a great question.
That's a good question.
Let me tackle that from a couple angles, and thank you, Ben, wherever you are. So first off, I think the present maturity, again, I talked about aerial drone technology being pretty advanced, and we're not even halfway there. So again, one of the areas I see is multiple vehicle integration and interoperability, swarms of unmanned uncrewed maritime systems. That's the future, and I think the more and more that we overcome the communications barriers, but that's being done. And it's brilliant. DRIX, for example, has been serving as a communications command and control platform for that Hawaii operation and several others.
Yeah, sure. So multiple vehicle swarms and kind of collaborative system of systems approach.
You know, and one area of that I'll key on is basically dynamic asset management in an autonomous way. So oftentimes, data will inform a change in plans, right? If you find something, here's a good example. If DRIX is going along and is mapping and all of a sudden runs across an interesting feature like an uncharted seamount, well then you might want to go get an AUV on it, or maybe an ROV from a ship and characterize it better. Rather than just the bathymetry, get a better feel for what kind of benthic habitat is on that seamount, and maybe even sample some of it, like from an ROV. So that could be done on the fly. There should be with autonomous planning, and that's again is the future that DRIX is pointing towards. That isn't really happening today. You know, when something like that happens, you bring the vehicle back and you go and reconfigure the plan, and the ship will go out there, and so that's an exciting area of future development.
No, sure. I think so building more intelligence into the remote system or the uncrewed system.
Yes.
In fact, we had in an earlier webinar, we were talking about Ifremer's new deep water AUV, which has indeed some of that type of intelligence built into it, designed into it, so that it can configure its own mission depending on what it finds. So if I see this, then I'll do that, and which is, and that type of complexity in the intelligence of the thing is pretty mind-blowing.
That is impressive.
Yeah. And clearly it's a big area of potential innovation, isn't it, to bring even more efficiency to the activity.
Yeah.
So we've got another one here. So this is winding back to your time at NOAA, Admiral. Looking at your time at NOAA, how would you define the main challenges in getting the organisation on board? Is the scientific community convinced of the value of unmanned systems versus more traditional approaches?
Thanks, Maria. That's a great question. Well, first off, I think the scientific community is sold. Now, there's a large part of the scientific community that's traditional and will never want to see ships, never want to see people not go to sea on ships. And I don't think that's the future. I think the future, again, is ships augmented by uncrewed vehicles. And there's a fear there. That's a change that people might think will remove them from the loop. And I don't think there is ever going to be an totally uncrewed system. And so, but that is a little bit of a challenge getting over. But most of the scientific community, the innovators in it that I know and work with, we both do, they're convinced. Now, the question about organizationally is a good question, because whoever we're addressing, whether it be a university, industry, or government, there is a challenge to get any given group to affect that change, to go on board, get on board with marine autonomy. And for me at NOAA, that it wasn't so much a challenge of getting people convinced, because they love the technology. It was two things: organizing and leading. So we needed to organize around it, and that's why we established a new program with someone in charge, and then two operations centers: a uncrewed maritime operations center in Gulfport, Mississippi, and an uncrewed aerial systems operations center in Lakeland, Florida. So organization, and then leadership, putting someone in charge and getting overall leadership, in that case me, to embrace the program, support it, get money in the budget for it, and champion the cause. And that's critical. You have to have leadership sold, or the organization won't move fast forward.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I think the potential is obviously enormous. The need is huge, and the revolution is it's kind of radical, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a radical opportunity, but it requires some leadership to make it all happen, get the ball rolling. And,
like we're doing today, like
Exail
is doing in the industry.
Well, we play that sort of technical role. We've got amazing engineers developing amazing technologies and hopefully addressing the real challenges of our customers. That's the goal, and it's a team effort. Have we got any more questions? Come on, we must have some more. No, really? We've run out of questions.
All right, we answered them all.
Well, okay. Well, let's call it a day then. Thank you very much, Tim, for your time and your insight. And I think what I'd say, maybe just a couple of final words. If to the audience, I would encourage you to look out Tim's podcast, which he does, as a voluntary exercise. Some really fascinating interviews that you've had with some really amazing people. I would encourage you to look into that if you have time to dig around a little bit and find the podcast that Tim does.
It is called the American Blue Economy Podcast, but for those of you who aren't in the U.S., we don't necessarily just stay focused on America. Really, we try to look at everything affecting the whole ocean and science and technology arena.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But thank you very much for being with us. And I think if anybody's got any questions, we've got one more question.
Okay.
Brilliant. Excellent. Is autonomous refueling at sea on the roadmap?
Well,
yes.
Yes.
Short answer, yes.
Thank you, Mike.
And I think that it's always been, certainly with Drix, it's always been in the roadmap. And I think it's one of those things, step by step. But the systems, launch recovery systems, and so on that we've developed for Drix have evolved massively over the last few years, and that refueling capability is in the roadmap. Not yet deployed, as far as I know, but it's certainly part of the plan.
Here's something to finish with. So we've been great questions about the future, and something that the U.S. Air Force just completed. They had a autonomous aerial vehicle in really high altitude that had a mission of over 700 days. And so that's, again, aerial drones have really advanced, and that's what we need to ask of our uncrewed maritime systems.
Yeah.
Get them out there for years.
Yeah, excellent. All right, well, many thanks. And if you've got any questions, you know where we are. Don't hesitate, and look out for the next Exail webinar.
Thank you, David.
Tim. Goodbye.